Niagara-on-the-Lake is often referred to as the prettiest town in Canada, but to many people, it is also the most haunted, or at least one of the most haunted towns in the country. Joining us now, Kyle Upton from Ghost Tours of Niagara out of Fort George. Kyle, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Tell us a couple of ghost stories to begin with, Kyle. Where are the ghosts in Niagara-on-the-Lake? Does Fort George actually house these ghosts?
Our focus on our ghost tours is the stories, the experiences at Fort George. So certainly there are a variety of ghostly experiences that encompass all over the place throughout the Niagara Peninsula, but certainly our focus is on those ghosts that seem to be associated with the fort, and to a certain extent, I guess, beyond the fort, but sort of connected to the same sort of history as the fort.
Why so much paranormal activity here in Niagara-on-the-Lake?
There's certainly a pile of different theories, some connected to, I guess, the historical events that happened through this time, and I guess to a certain, white guy bias, the War of 1812 part of the history. But the Niagara Peninsula in general certainly has a history of supernatural, paranormal. They've got a connection there going back well before the arrival of us Europeans. So maybe it's ley lines, maybe it's that we're a peninsula and the water combined with the land. We don't know enough about it to know why it is, but we certainly have a pretty good idea that we seem to have more than our fair share of curious stories in that regard.
Ghost tours at the fort are on hold right now, but you've got an event coming up this week.
This coming Friday, that the Friends of Fort George, the charitable organization that managed the Ghost Tour in partnership with Parks Canada, who takes care of Fort George itself. So we've got a next best thing to being there in person in terms of a virtual ghost tour question and answer get together and get a little bit of our Fort George dose of Fort George, as well as our dose of the stories there. So that's this Friday through the Zoom platform. Friends of Fort George, I think 8:30 is when we're starting up that.
Is this a free event for anybody to take part in?
I think there's a little bit of both. That it's, I believe, free for the membership of the Friends of Fort George, and then I think there's a $5 charge if you're not at this point a member. But hey, become a member, and then it's free for you, and you also have access to other cool stuff.
Kyle, are you surprised sometimes at the popularity of paranormal interest?
The ghost stories, that storytelling element, that's the hook to get people into the fort and introduced to the history, grabbing people from the side door that maybe don't know that they're interested in history yet. History kind of has a bad rap for being kind of dry. So that was the original goal of the Ghost Tour. And then I guess both the interest in the paranormal in general that developed through the 1990s as well as the early noughts. People suddenly latched onto that. There was, the TV shows and the ghost hunting and investigation. But that was surprising to me, but I suppose it shouldn't have been, because, what bonds us all is that at some point we're not going to be here anymore. So we all as individuals, have a certain vested interest in, hey, what happens next? And if we can get perhaps a little bit of insight into that now, it's, comforting or terrifying, I suppose, depending upon what your experience now is.
Let's just talk again about Friday. Can you review again how people can find Friday's event?
Sure. Yeah. Your best way is jump onto social media. You can visit the Friends of Fort George Facebook page. You can access it through the Ghost Tours of Niagara Facebook page, or you can go directly to friendsoffortgeorge.ca, hit the website there for further details, as well as to access ticketing.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time today, Kyle.
My pleasure. Thank you.